Welcome to the Cybersecurity Information Systems Analysis Center podcast, sponsored by the Defense Technical Information Center. This episode's topic is cloud infrastructure. We sit down with two CSIAC employees, Maida and Michael VanSteenburg, to talk about the various obstacles a company needs to overcome in order to move their local infrastructure to a cloud-based solution. It is crucial that companies have an understanding of the various cloud deployment models, considerations that must be taken into account, and the benefits of moving to the cloud. We hope that you enjoyed this podcast, and as always, be sure to visit the CSIAC.org website, that is CSIAC.org, to discuss this video further and give us your feedback, as well as check out any of our other content that you might enjoy. Thank you. Nick, Mike, thank you guys for joining me here this morning, and to give your experience with cloud and deployment models in the cloud. So just give me real quick and everybody else that's tuning in what you do here and your previous experience with the cloud.
I'm Michael VanSteenburg, and I'm a junior cybersecurity analyst here at Quanterion.
I'm Nick Maida, and I'm a cybersecurity analyst here also at Quanterion Solutions.
So what did you guys do for a cloud project?
We focused on moving our traditional infrastructure into a privately hosted cloud-based solution. We had servers, obviously we run the website, and there's the databases that go along with that. And we were researching, okay, how would an organization pivot from traditional infrastructure to a cloud-based solution?
So how to take a non-cloud solution in a private infrastructure and deploy it in a cloud model?
Exactly, with all the necessary networking and security in place.
In all the services that the CSIAC provides?
Yep.
Okay.
And we chose to use OpenStack, which is an open source software for developing cloud software.
So was OpenStack the only tool that you used, or was there a suite of tools? So OpenStack would be your what? Explain what OpenStack is.
OpenStack is the open source software to develop a cloud solution. Within OpenStack, you can use optional tools such as Ansible and Heat, which are orchestration tools. One's for configuration, one's for orchestration of your stacks.
So was there any other tools other than those three? I've heard of cloud deployments containing hundreds of tools that you need to configure these sorts of things.
Yeah, there's many tools, but those are the ones we chose to spend a lot of time in research and use.
So what would be the main difference between like a configuration tool and an orchestration tool, and what would those be used for?
So orchestration is mainly focused on standing up infrastructure, getting the machines in place, and then configuration management affects those machines once they are already running. For example, you might use it to patch your systems or install software.
So what would an organization such as the CSIAC or another government organization or even a commercial organization, what would they use the cloud for? What kind of deployment would they see?
Yeah, there's three main deployments out there in the field. One being private cloud, where your data is stored on site and your infrastructure is also on site. And then there's a public model, which is like Amazon Web Services or Microsoft Azure, where the organization will give their data out to them, or actually where they can purchase software as a service or firewall as a service, any type of service like that they can purchase. And then there's a hybrid solution where it combines both a private and a public deployment.
So for a government organization that hosts a bunch of different data that's both classified and unclassified, what type of deployment would they use?
That's really up to them. It depends on what you plan to do. Like he mentioned, in your privately hosted solution, you have complete control over your data. Whereas if you have a feeling that you're going to need to scale up or something, and you don't have those resources at hand, what you can do is either do a hybrid or a public solution where you're purchasing that infrastructure from the cloud service provider.
Now, are there any restrictions for organizations when they're hosting sensitive data up in the cloud, say medical records or classified data? Is that something that you can do in the public cloud?
For example, a government organization would host their data on a FedRAMP certified cloud service provider.
So those are the types of restrictions that are applied. Okay. So what are the main considerations that an organization must have in order to deploy their infrastructure from a private infrastructure to a public cloud or a hybrid solution, as you guys call it?
There's a lot of planning that has to go into place. Suddenly you're moving all the data, and you have to be sure that you're taking into consideration the security requirements and how your developers and web admins are going to access this data once it's up into the public cloud.
Now, is there any restrictions? I'm sure it depends on what type of service that they're hosting or the organization is hosting. Is there restrictions on how much data you can move up or that type of requirement?
It depends on what you pay for. Yeah, so the more you use it, the costly it's going to be.
So the more data that you transmit, the higher that the cloud service provider charges you as an organization?
Correct, yep.
So you guys mentioned a lot of players coming in together in order to move an infrastructure from a private organization to a public cloud or a hybrid solution. So what players need to be involved in that sort of deployment?
The individuals that need to be involved when deploying the cloud are your firewall admins, your sysadmins, your web developers, anyone else who may be interested in using this cloud-based solution.
So that kind of transitions into the next part, which is, so what advantages would, say, a security administrator or a web developer get when they're moving all this infrastructure to the cloud and their services are now in the cloud?
Really, the entire company benefits because, say in a traditional environment, one of your hard drives goes on one of your web servers, taking it offline. You'll be waiting around for your order to come in for that new hard drive, and then you have to send somebody down there to replace it. Whereas in the cloud, it's as easy as a push of a button to get that back online.
So all of that's handled by the cloud service provider, all those run-of-the-mill maintenance infrastructure needs that a normal organization would have to maintain.
Right, the reliability and scalability is there.
Okay, so you don't have to pay personnel to handle the hard drive and hardware requirements that you would need to maintain.
Yeah,
You're saving a lot of time.
The time of building another server or waiting for it to come in, like Mike was saying.
Okay. What are the main differences between hosting a public cloud deployment versus a private infrastructure deployment in regards to security?
Well, the biggest difference is who controls the data. In your private cloud environment, you have complete control over your data. Whereas in the public cloud, you're relying and trusting the cloud service provider with access to that data.
So the organization's control of your data, meaning that they, like we were mentioning before, they have to abide by certain regulations that the government provides in order to keep your data secure.
Correct. That's why Amazon and Azure both offer government solutions to the public cloud. For example, they both mention that the data is hosted locally in the United States, and individuals who have access to those machines are United States citizens.
I'm assuming they follow the same regulations that any other classified information hosting service would have to abide by.
Right.
Any other facility or physical facility would have to abide by those regulations.
Right.
So are there any other security risks in maintenance that's required by a organization that's hosting up in the cloud? What do they need to configure for security, whether that be network and their actual services that they're hosting? What do they need to manage up in the cloud?
One of the largest benefits of using the cloud, specifically in our implementation that we noticed, was that you have complete control over setting up firewalls, configuring firewall rules, setting up security groups for individual machines.
So these cloud service providers provide you some of the same levels of security configuration that you would see in your private infrastructure.
A lot of the requirements are on you to patch your systems and keep them up to date, and implement encryption in a publicly hosted environment.
So they would need encryption hosted end-to-end if you're communicating with your organization's private networking, your public deployment.
Right, and it's your responsibility to set up that hybrid connection proxy.
Okay. So what are the main drawbacks of deploying a cloud environment, and what does an organization need to look out for? What are the main hurdles?
I would say cost. it can be very costly to run your own private cloud or even running a public cloud. Cost for hardware, personnel to run these things, and learning curve on understanding the tools necessary to run your infrastructure. With public cloud, it can be costly with data transmissions, and depending on how many users are on it, the size of the project, all that accounts for the costs.
So like we were saying before, these cloud service providers charge more for the more data that you transmit back and forth, right?
Yeah, you might not realize that on your own network, you're constantly moving data back and forth. But as soon as you move to the public cloud, suddenly you're being charged a ridiculously amount of money for these same transfers.
So what do developers and your web developers need to consider? Is there more of a strain in deploying their web apps or their services up in the cloud versus a private infrastructure, or is it mostly the same?
You can't expect a one-to-one mapping between what you traditionally have in a regular environment versus a cloud environment. So as such, you have to build in with considerations in mind that it will be hosted in the public cloud.
So I think that gives a pretty good overview of what the cloud means and what people should be looking forward to and considering when they're deploying these organizational private infrastructures to the cloud. Thank you guys very much for joining us today. I hope you guys have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
We would like to thank Nick and Mike for sharing their experiences with us this podcast. Nick and Mike have also written an article to accompany this video. If you would like to read the article, as well as give us feedback, visit www.csiac.org/podcast/cloud. Thank you. Is your organization facing challenging information technology-oriented research and development problems that you need addressed in a timely, efficient, and cost-effective manner? If yes, the CSIAC may be able to provide the necessary solution required for your problem via the utilization of our Core Analysis Task Service. Core Analysis tasks are customer-funded, pre-awarded, and pre-competed contract vehicles geared towards research and analytics or research and development in the areas of cybersecurity, software engineering, information assurance, and knowledge management. CSIAC is able to leverage a large network of subject matter experts on these areas, including CSIAC staff, industry professionals, and members of academia. Projects can begin in as little as 4 to 6 weeks from the statement of work approval and can continue as long as 12 months with a maximum funding of up to $1 million. For more information about core analysis tasks and how they can help your organization, visit www.csiac.org/cats.